What's up? It's your boy, Amateur Pro Home Chef Nathanael Levinson. Why buy marinara sauce at the store? You can just make your own. Rolling. It's live. So we're gonna be making our own homemade tomato sauce today. This is a very base recipe. It's really, really good by itself. I wouldn't necessarily use it for pizza sauce, but basically any recipe that needs marinara sauce, you can use it for that. Chicken parmesan, spaghetti meatballs, anything like that. This is good for that. So what you're gonna need, first thing you're gonna need is tomatoes, all right? You need tomatoes. Now, unless you're growing your own tomatoes or buying them from a farmer's market where you know someone grew them on the vine, I recommend you use canned tomatoes for this, not fresh tomatoes. Buying fresh tomatoes from the store, you're not gonna get near the depth of flavor as you will from tomatoes that you get from your home garden or someone else's home garden. I talked about this in our tomato episode, but basically, you're just not developing the sugars. Now, what's nice about canned tomatoes is those tomatoes go straight from the vine, they're ripened on the vine, and they go straight into the factories, right? Right into the can. So the canned tomatoes are actually ripened and delicious, and then they can them. So, you know, find a more high quality canned tomato and it's gonna do really good stuff. So I've got some Cento whole canned tomatoes. You can get diced tomatoes, you can get crushed tomatoes, but in general, the less processed, the better it's gonna taste at the end of the day. So I've got some just whole peeled tomatoes in their own juices, and we're gonna go with these, okay? So you're also gonna need a couple of aromatics. We're using onion, we're using garlic, we're using herbs. I've got fresh oregano, basil, thyme. You can use any dried herbs you want to, but those are what I've got, that's what I'm using. You need olive oil, salt, and pepper, but you also need any sort of high-proof alcohol. I'm using gin, but you do need a high-proof alcohol that's relatively neutral in flavor, so don't use like a bourbon or a scotch, something that will radically alter the flavor. Basically, tomatoes have a lot of compounds that are only soluble in alcohol, not in water. So by adding a little bit of alcohol, which you could use vodka, you could use Everclear, you could use tequila, all sorts of things, you're going to extract more flavor out of those tomatoes. I like to use a nice gin because gin has a lot of herbal elements, and so it enhances the flavor of the sauce. But if you're not sure what to pick, just go with vodka. Won't change the flavor at all, right? It's a neutral grain spirit, so you'll get that flavor extraction, but you won't change the flavor, right? So first things first, we're gonna dice up our aromatics. So for these purposes, a little bit of a rough chop is just fine because we're gonna end up pureeing the sauce later. Okay, next we're gonna chop up some garlic. Put in as much or as little as you want, depending on how much you like garlic. I really like garlic, so I'm gonna go with 3 or 4 cloves. Okay, now we got our aromatics. Those are gonna go in first. What we're gonna do with our herbs, since I have all my herbs as whole herbs, what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to put them all together and I'm gonna tie them together with butcher's twine to make a little bouquet garni. But if you were using dried herbs, then you'll add the dried herbs in with the sauteing onion and garlic. So we're gonna go to our stove. We're gonna start heating up the stove, put some olive oil in it, medium heat, start sauteing the garlic and onion until it gets fragrant. So the next thing we wanna do, once our onions and garlic are going, we're gonna wanna add some tomato paste. This is basically just pureed tomatoes that have been cooked down for a while until it's very thick, almost like, well, more thicker than ketchup, almost. So we're gonna add this, and we want to let this cook out a little bit because it tastes very raw until you can cook it down, but it adds a lot of sweetness and unction to the dish. Now that we've cooked our paste down, we're gonna wanna deglaze the pan, which is just add liquid, and we're gonna use our whatever alcoholic liquid you chose, we're gonna deglaze the pan with that. So maybe like a 1/4 cup, but you can eyeball it. And now we're gonna wanna add our whole canned tomatoes. Just kind of mash down those whole tomatoes to get them going. We wanna turn the heat down to about medium-low. Now it's time to bust out one of my favorite tools in the old kitchen inventory, and that's a hand or immersion blender. Now, if you don't have one of these, then you should puree the tomatoes before you throw them into the pot and make it a nice paste. But this way, you can kind of do it in the pot. So this is literally just a blade, a blender blade on the end of a stick with a handle. And so you plug this in and you can blend things in the pot. Don't need to put it in a blender, don't need to put it in a food processor, you can do it right in the pot. And now that your sauce is nice and smooth, of course you can leave it chunky if you want to, that's totally optional. I'm gonna add in my bouquet garni and we're gonna let that simmer down for about 40 to 45 minutes. Now you don't have to let it cook down that long, but the longer it cooks down, the more the sugar, the natural sugars of the tomato are gonna come out. So once your sauce has cooked down to the point that you're comfortable with, go ahead and kill the heat. Then we taste and season. So salt, pepper, and then if it's not quite sweet enough, it's like a little too acidic, you can add a little bit of sugar or other sweetener. So I use like blue agave syrup. It's got very neutral taste. You only need a little bit of it. So just kind of play with that until you get the flavor that you want, but that's it. Your marinara sauce is done. So we made pasta sauce, right? Seems simple, and it is, but it's also well worth the effort. Stuff from a jar just doesn't compare. So first of all, let's just taste our sauce by itself. It's tart, it's sweet, a little salty. You can taste all the herbs and the aromatics that we put in there. And you know, I mean, it's tomato sauce, so it tastes like tomato sauce, but it really is, you can build layers of flavor in there. That the tomato is a really good vehicle for all these different aromatics. You can put vegetables in there, mushrooms, you can put zucchini and things like that. You can make a meat sauce, like there's a whole lot you can do from here. So, but let's taste it on just a little bit of spaghetti. A little bit of spaghetti that we have cooked al dente. Put a little bit of Parmesan cheese. Nice, super simple preparation. Add some protein if you want to, but you don't have to. This stuff is good as it is. It's really stinking good. I strongly encourage you to make your own tomato sauce. Make it in bulk, it freezes super well. Just make that blank sauce and then build from there. And I promise you, your spaghetti will never be the same. Until next time, I'm your boy, amateur pro home chef Nathanael Levinson. Make us a marinara.